I have a feeling that when a lot of people hear about resource-based economies, they think of, well, hippies. Or they think about a totalitarian regime. Thank you, communism. But for me, an image that really speaks well to a resource-based economy is a barn raising. And if you're not familiar, this is a tradition in Amish society. When someone needs a barn, which is considered very important in their society, the community gets together because it's considered too big a job for one person. They get together and they help put that barn together for them. And this is kind of how I see an RBE. A community coming together and working and taking responsibility for their society and for the people within it. And if there's one word that to me speaks to my concept of an RBE better than pretty much any other, it's responsibility. And I'll tell you what I mean. First, let's take a look at the currency-based side. So I'll kind of give a definition of how I see capitalism, at least as it's practiced today. Pure capitalism is attempting to acquire as much wealth as you can for yourself without regard to the impact on anything or anyone else. Now, we don't live in a pure capitalist society. There's socialist elements within it, but capitalism is the driving force. So let's look at a couple examples. Homelessness. In the United States, there are about 555,000 homeless. And that's estimated at over 100 million worldwide. There's a philosophy within capitalism that I've heard espoused too often in recent years, that you have to earn even the basic amenities of life. Even things like shelter and food and clothing, you have to earn. And how do you earn things in capitalist society? By making money. And how do you make money? By taking it from other people. If you think I'm overstating that, think about where your money comes from. Because all money really comes from, in some way, from taking money from someone else at some point in that process. So, according to this philosophy, the homeless have not earned their right to shelter, not earned their right to food and to clothing, the basic amenities. They haven't earned it because they haven't taken enough money from other people. To me, this is socially irresponsible. It is also a complete divestment of our responsibility to our society and the people within it. So let's look at another example. This time, let's look at our resources. A currency-based system looks at resources as a means to acquire wealth. So we gather as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to create as much profit as we can, no matter what impact this has. And boy, does it have an impact. We destroy wildlife refuges, wildlife habitats. We destroy the trees that create the oxygen we breathe and process things like carbon dioxide. We pollute the air we breathe. We pollute the water we drink. We create gases that trap heat in the atmosphere and create erratic weather patterns. To me, this is an irresponsible approach to resource management. And it's made even worse by the fact that those who do profit directly from this behavior fight tooth and nail to prevent anything that will stop them from making as much profit as they can. Any regulations, any new technologies that can make things more efficient and cleaner, these are fought. So, how do things differ then in a resource-based economy? First, let me give a bit of an analogy. Consider society as a statue. Since we're talking about something big here, let's use a big example, the Statue of Liberty. Now, the Statue of Liberty is built upon a metal framework, and that framework gives structure, it gives shape to the statue. It gave the sculptors a place to build upon. In a resource-based economy, that framework is the tasks that have to be completed in order for society to function. Things like food production and energy production, education, the bare minimum, basically, for society to function. Each of these is a bar in that framework. So why, you might ask, should we do these tasks if we're not getting paid for it? Because we've been rather like children, haven't we? And our employers are our parents. We do what we're told and we get an allowance. So why should we do any of this work if we don't get that allowance? Well, there's two choices, aren't there? We could let society fall apart, or we could accept our social responsibility and do these social chores, societal chores. But here's the upside. Because we are eliminating so much work through automation and through getting rid of unnecessary work, things like work that is in place to process and to manage money, there's a huge amount of people that can work on these things. So no one has to spend a lot of time on any of them. In fact, we would be working less in an RBE than we do now. And then we get to do the fun stuff. We get to get into that sculpting material and start putting in layers and putting in depth and detail. The things that make life interesting and worthwhile. The things we're passionate about. And we would have a lot more time to devote to those things. And the world would be better for it. So to look at the prior examples, homelessness. Now, homelessness is really a byproduct of currency. If you don't have that artificial obstruction creating homelessness, preventing people from accessing resources, then you don't have homelessness. As for resources and resource management, the first thing that would need to be done and for an RBE would be to determine what resources you have to use, basically budgeting your resources, at which point what's left, what is available, can be used to give people what they need and most of what they want. And it can be done in a much more responsible and efficient manner. And without people trying to obstruct new technologies and responsible behavior in the name of profit, we can develop much more easily new ways of managing our resources. So I know that change is difficult and it's frightening, but it's time for us to grow up, move out of our parents' houses, and start taking responsibility for our own lives. It's time for us to pave our own way in the world. What do you say? Are you ready to take responsibility?